I'm a producer of VR, and it's funny that Ingrid mentioned history, because just briefly, for those of you that are familiar with the American Civil War, our public broadcaster, PBS, has a Civil War drama that's called Mercy Street, and it's about when the state of Virginia was taken over by the North. And they came to us and they said, look, we would like to do a companion piece. And so we are doing a Civil War battle reenactment, the story of two brothers who are fighting on opposite sides in virtual reality. And when you talk about hacking, we actually need the camera, which in this case will be Jaunt. We need the camera to be shooting at 120 frames per second, because this will be the first time that slow motion is ever done in virtual reality. So you talk about hacking and pushing the technology. We know the story we want to tell. It was up to me as the producer to literally hammer the camera people and the companies to work with us to actually push the limit. And we're very fortunate to have Technicolor as part of the experience as well. But I will say to you, we are flying, I don't know if you have the expression in Swedish, but we are flying by the seat of our pants. We are basically learning as we go. The thing about VR is it's one giant experiment. I'm going to talk to you about what I know today. I might deliver a rule or two. It's up to you to break them, because I don't believe that we have any firm and solid rules in VR yet that can't be broken. By the way, this is interactive, so if you have a question at any time or you're confused, please just raise your hand and shout. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick point of view of the industry, and then we're going to talk about the storytelling ecosystem, and then storytelling in VR, and I'm actually going to show you a couple of videos in 360. So just so you know, what I'm going to show you, I'm going to use a 360 player to actually move around the environment, but these things that I'm showing you are much better in an HMD, a head-mounted display. As we all know, this is the essence of VR. This is Berkeley. I call this a 4D experience because the wind is blowing in your face. But this is an experiment too. So when Ingrid talked about being immersed in a world, you totally leave a world aside to become a bird here. Okay, this is how much the industry is worth. It's shocking. There's an enormous amount of investment in technology right now. And venture capitalists and venture funds are investing in technology and continue to invest in technology because they believe the ecosystem is there to produce great virtual reality. I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of great virtual reality out there right now. And there's a difference between 360 and virtual reality, which I'll explain. The reason is because a lot of people are enamored of the technology. So we don't want to have the tail wag the dog and have the technology be the thing that dictates the story. It's actually the other way around. So while all this investment is being made, in my opinion, we are finally at the place where it's time for artistry. And I know a lot of VR filmmakers agree with me. It's like we're moving someone, I think mentioned to me today, I don't know if it was you, Peter, or not, but the Lumiere brothers, you know? Now that we have a camera, let's play with it and see what it does. So that's what we're doing. We're doing a lot of hacking, a lot of experimentation. And by the way, we do not publish our experiments, because unless it's high quality, it shouldn't be out there, because we don't want to turn off consumers. And we've had a couple happy accidents in experiments, and so we've released those. Okay, so this is just like this month, okay, before I came here. So head-mounted displays, which is the goggles, new companies coming on board. Now, well, you've got HTC Vive, and you've got Oculus, and you've got the Samsung Gear VR. But in addition now, you've got Intel Alloy, which will be self-contained, you won't need a phone. Qualcomm will release the Vortex 820. Actitel will release Actitel Vision. Mobile phones. Google is coming out with Daydream and a new phone that will make that Daydream beautiful. And we're waiting to see what Apple is going to do. Professional cameras. The Lytro Emerge. I'm not going to get too technical, but Lytro uses lightwave technology. And right now, we don't have that. We have field of view, we have 3D, but lightwave technology is the waves that affect the way we actually see. So this camera will be even more real, will project more reality, you'll feel even more present. And we had the good fortune to be in contact with them, and they interviewed us as storytellers, saying, how are you going to tell stories and what do you need? And that's what I mean about having great collaborators. IDT is producing 1,000 frames per second camera, which I could only wish was going to be available by the middle of October. Not only is it not going to be available, but it was $100,000, and that was a bit over our budget. Blackmagic and AMD. So Blackmagic, has anybody used Blackmagic design cameras? You know you got a glitch or two in them, right? So those glitches are being fixed so that it can serve in VR, and AMD is a new processor going into that. GoPro just released an 8-camera array called the Omni, and Live Planet from Halsey Munner, the person that brought you Salesforce and CNET. This is live streaming 4K in-camera stitching, which is pretty big, and its own ecosystem. So the integrity of the system is solid. I might be talking a little bit too technical, but hopefully we'll get to that. Software. You need to have software to stitch and edit. There's a competition going for workflow right now. Ozo, John, these are some of the names. GoPro, 360 Rise. If you're just getting started in VR, 360rise.com. A lot of educational materials there. Liquid Cinema is a new technology from a guy named Thomas Wollner that will allow forced perspective. One of the things for storytellers is that people walk in the environment, they're going to look everywhere. But I guarantee you, if I had Simon clap really loud in the middle of this, you would all turn around to look. So sound and light is the way we focus attention. I suspect that this thing, Liquid Cinema, will be abused until people really learn how to use it, which means, oh, let me make them look over here. So, video stitching software. Cinema 5D is rendering software. Adobe Premiere will have an update specifically for VR. And then distribution, you can distribute via app or via channels. We're actually getting sort of a cable television model here, where you get genres and channels. There are a bunch of distributors you can look at. There's Video, there's Little Star without the E. So there's a lot of place to put your stuff right now. But distribution deals are being made. HTC Vive, does everyone know what the Vive is? I have a quick question. How many people have never been inside a virtual reality experience? Okay, well, you know, right next door. You can try it out. You can see Antoine Carroll's iPhilip. It's a pretty good thing to watch. But HTC Vive is now launching a 360 player for content. It was just games. Now it's content. Okay, so what are the verticals? The reason 3D movies didn't survive is because there just wasn't a reason. I'll probably get slammed for that comment. But now you have VR working across multiple genres. So you have games, you have live events, you have entertainment, the independent studios, the television networks. By the way, the television networks in the United States are now doing stereoscopic. There's a difference between just 2D, 360, and stereoscopic, which is 3D. We'll talk a little bit about that. Education, retail. I came to Sweden. It just so happened I was here at the same time. I came to Sweden for IKEA. What does that tell you? That retailers are looking at how they're going to use VR. Engineering, computer-assisted design, military, medicine. You can go online and see VR medicine and see how it's helping people who are paraplegics to actually begin to move their body parts again. It's amazing what this can do. And we're just at the beginning. And I think, like nuclear power, it has the possibility for use for good and for evil. Okay, so these are some of the content things, right? Today we're going to talk about immersive journalism and documentary. And I will talk a little bit about cinematic VR. But the reason I'm talking about documentary is because of the festival itself. If I'm going too fast, just say so. Is everybody still with me?
Yes.
Yay! Okay, good. All right, let's talk about this immersion continuum, right? So, this is how it goes. So, 360 is available inside a headset with a Google Cardboard on the web, and what you're doing is you're filming something in 2D, right? And I'm able to look around the environment. So essentially, it is a 2D movie in 360. Great. Then we move up to, and that's all ways you can move it. By the way, if you can see, go to Google Spotlight Stories. If you can find Pearl, P-E-R-L, it is the absolute best VR project I have seen to date, and I cried. So, not that it takes a lot to make me cry. Okay, into the Google Cardboard. Everybody know what Google Cardboard is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's this thing that has the lenses in it. You put it together and you drop your phone in. And a little bit of trivia, the reason it doesn't have a strap is because Google wanted people to go, oh, hey, look at this. They wanted to make it easy to share. Consumer mobile HMDs. ViewMaster, if you remember ViewMaster as a kid where you put the disc in and you clicked it, ViewMaster took the Google spec and made a hard plastic headset. And so there are many of those now too. The difference between that and the next one, which is consumer mobile proprietary HMDs, is with the Samsung Gear VR, you actually have a storefront. So you put on the Gear VR, you choose your content, you navigate, you can purchase games, you can purchase content, you can view content for free. Big issue right now, content discovery. It's very hard to find things. So, if you think you don't want to do VR, but you're very clever with technology, you might want to discover and invent the thing for VR discovery, because it's needed. Okay, then we move up to consumer tethered, right? So, by the way, this is where Daydream will be in the consumer mobile. Consumer tethered, that is, you need a PC, right, to process it. It's a much better experience. This is the Oculus, this is the HTC Vive. This is the Sony PlayStation VR that will come at the end of October. And Vive is actually working on a wireless headset. There's a tremendous amount of rendering, processing power, and data that has to be transferred, so I'm really interested in how they're going to do that. Then, has anybody been in an amusement park and like experienced the Harry Potter ride or any sort of 3D ride where you get in, or Captain EO or any of those things? This is the original immersive entertainment. They had the language long before we did. So when all this started, I went to those companies and I said, teach me. Because that language of immersion, I knew that's where we're going to go. And VR domes, they're exploding. This is content. So, example, if you ever heard of the National Association of Broadcasters Conference in Las Vegas in April, we are actually helping them. We are building a VR dome so that when people come to share their content and they're on panels, it would be projected on the dome all around you. So, does anybody have any questions about that? Feel free to take a picture if you haven't already. I'll wait. Okay. Great. The storytelling ecosystem. How does this work? Okay. Briefly. So first you got to have a camera, right? You got to pick your rig. Believe it or not, sometimes this is the hardest thing to do. Because we do a ton of camera tests, because different cameras have different senses. If you're shooting in low light, you'd need a Sony AX6. If you're shooting in high light, you need something else. They're stereoscopic, where you need 2 cameras for every one point of view, because you're building 3D. So picking the rig is very important. So first you need your story, right? First you need the story, and I say this over and over again. If you can tell your story in cinematic 2D, go do it there. Use VR for what it was meant to be. It is an experiential medium. We're just getting to the point where we're moving from wow, which is, ooh, look, I'm all around and I'm in this environment, to an actual forward-moving narrative. By the way, last year in forward-moving narrative, everybody said, oh, no, you can't move the camera. Now, you can, and you can do it gently, and so that's what I mean about every time we make a rule, we break it. Antoine Carroll from Okio, whose piece is running there, he'll tell you everything that was wrong with that piece, everything that went right, everything that went wrong. We're happy to share our failures. But now we can move the camera. So if you can imagine it, go experiment. The next, production software. So after you get the cameras, right? And by the way, the camera's going to produce a lot of data. So, for example, if you have a 16-array camera of GoPros, which is here at the very bottom, obviously, that's 16 data cards, right? All of that shots, all of the shots from the camera, there's software to do this for you now, but in the beginning you had to label them and line them up yourself and figure it out and do all that. But that's a ton of data. And when you're in the field, you need a ton of storage too. You need a couple 2 terabyte disks. It depends how long you're shooting, and when you're in editing, you need a RAID. So there's a lot of data produced by this. Video Stitch is one of the programs that will help you stitch. There's also Skybox Metal, which is a plugin for Adobe. So there are choices. I prefer Skybox Metal, Liquid Cinema I talked about. Then you get over to distribution, right? This is the Wild West right now. Nobody's paying for anything, but they will. Because as content gets better, people will demand great content, and as the games industry moves forward, people get used to being in the headset for longer, because everybody says, oh, length, you gotta go 3 minutes, 8 minutes. Right now, our top production is 11 minutes. But it's also, what do you need to tell the story? One of the pieces we have, which is called No Good Deed, is about picking up a hitchhiker in the desert. All I can tell you is don't do that. You can figure out the outcome. Wasn't good. 4.5 minutes, the story leaves you chilled, especially in the end. By the way, used to be we said you couldn't do close-ups. But the last shot in this, you see this man's evil green eyes and you shudder. So these are things you can do. So if someone says you can't do that in VR, I'm not going to say the F word, but you know what I mean. Okay, so these are some of the distribution platforms that are out there and looking for third-party content. Now, a company like John, they want to control the technology, the content, and the distribution. But they realized that wasn't enough, so now they're taking third-party content. So there are lots of opportunities. And then consumption, the cardboard, the gear, the headset. So that's the ecosystem itself, right? Take a picture if you want. Okay. All right. Anybody know the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality? Who doesn't know the difference? Don't be shy. Okay, so augmented reality is data, and you can look up the Microsoft vision of augmented reality and play the video. I didn't want to take our time today because it's like 6 minutes. But it's information in front of you. So it's like a heads-up display on a car. You know, it's you're looking through it, and the data is appearing in front of you. Virtual reality is completely immersive. It is not 360. It is 360 perspective, but it's completely immersive. These two things are coming together in games, and they will come together in content as well, which means you will have data, you will have the chance to interact, because in augmented reality, you can push things with your hands, you can interact. And by the way, this is the fastest moving industry ever. It just, every day there's a new development. Every day I wake up and read, and it's very hard to keep up. So I rely, if you get into this, you'll know there's a network. I mean, Annika and I are constantly sharing information. We discover things and we share with each other. So it's a very friendly environment right now. In about a year, it will become cutthroat. Okay, you've got a story to tell. Am I moving too fast? No. Hey, great. Okay. This is not traditional screenwriting. This is sensorial writing. I got a script for a project from our scriptwriters, who, by the way, are independent VR filmmakers, but they're also film school graduates. And I said, there is no way I'll ever be able to get the budget for this script, because it's a film script. It's not a VR script. In film, when you're a writer, when you're a screenwriter, if you're not, you're a director, you are writing for the director. You're writing for the cinematographer. You're writing for the director of photography. And it's their vision, right? It's their power. In theater, which is a great background to have, how many come from theater? It will serve you well. How many come from games? It will serve you well. So you have to write the whole experience. It's prose, it's an experiential medium, right? So you are the power now. The writer returns to the power and director. In theater, there's effective collaboration between the writer and director. I have discovered that the same thing exists in VR. So in Hollywood, it's the director that has the power. In television over here, it's the writer, auteur, that has the power, the director and the writer. In VR, the power is coming back to the writer. Okay, so a new profession. A virtual DP, because directing photography in 360, you can't light the set like you would, right? Because it's all around you. So you have to figure out how to light that, and you have to figure out how to create the mood that you want to create, colorize, whatever you're doing. That's why a director of photography is now director of virtual photography, and 3D sound design. Oh my gosh. So we say sound is the lost stepchild in VR, because not enough people are paying attention to sound. And yet, there's some great technology, and I'll pass through a little of it. But imagine, in one of our scenes, in one of our pieces, at the end of the scene, the main character is shot. And when he's shot, everything goes dark. He falls. We're giving you the sensation of sound of falling backwards, because this sound falls away, right? Then he's whispered into his left ear, and then he's dragged across the floor. And it's all done through sound. So imagine, you can't see anything, but the sound is telling you what you're doing. Notes on Blindness is a good example of that. I'm not impressed with the visuals, but the sound was pretty impressive. Okay, I'll mention a project now and then, so take notes. You've got to have an understanding of three-dimensional space. Oh, there are two ofs in there. Did anybody notice that? Okay. So of. Three-dimensional space, so that's a two-dimensional of going to a 3D. Stereoscopic 2D or 3D, which we'll talk about. You must understand sound design, spatial, and light cinematography. It's good to come from gaming or special visual effects. Any visual effects folks in here? Then I can kind of say this. So visual effects people are wonderful. They support the story, right? They're not the storytellers, they're supporting the storytellers. So my experience is, when VR is coming solely from visual effects people, they're story challenged. But when those visual effects people are put together with great writers and directors, the results are stellar. Okay, you can bring more in from gaming, 3D and 4D dark rides, and theater than you actually can from film. Framing, shot, composition, and lighting are all different. If you don't remember anything else but this, you are not framing the shot, you are framing the attention. And how you frame attention is sound and light and character and story. The spatial relationships of your characters. So, Marius, we met, so I call you by name. So my relationship to him, if you're watching us in VR and you're watching from here, you're watching from here, and camera placement is an entirely different discussion. If I'm facing him and I'm head on, that says one thing about our relationship. If I'm talking to him like this, that says another. If I'm talking to him over my shoulder, that says another. If I'm right up in his face, that says another. So your relationship of character in space is also very important to your VR storytelling. You're shooting for multiple formats and platforms. Remember the continuum? So I always beg in the budget, and whatever we're doing, I always say, listen, we're going to shoot in 4K, 6K if we can. Because by the time you get down into your mobile phone, it's so compressed and streaming and stuff that you're going to lose quality. You may as well future-proof your content and shoot at the highest quality you can. And then what will happen, like in the camera system I mentioned, the Live Planet system, it transcodes to every platform for distribution. So every output platform is going to allow you to do that. They're the first. Okay, selecting your camera, I told you it's a challenge. Frame rates, got to be at least 60 frames per second or you'll make people sick. You can't do any fast cuts or you'll make people sick, or quick transitions. Here's another little secret. So, in this piece that we just did, there is, with the hitchhiker, there is a period where we're following him and he gets into the car. And the editor cut to the next shot before the door closed. And it made me sick. And I said, I think we can resolve this if you let the action be completed. Because my brain wants to see the completion of that action. If I'm getting in a car, I'm not going to change my point of view necessarily, but I'm going to feel the door close. Somehow I'm having that sensory. So let's just close the door before we cut to the interior, and it worked. So complete the action. There are so many studies being done about the brain in VR. I can't read them fast enough, but you'll certainly learn while you're shooting. Hide the crew. That goes without saying. Everything takes 2 to 4 times longer right now. Not so much anymore. That was like 6 months ago. Everything is being automated. So the software for stitching, it's faster now. The workflows are established. So it's getting easier. It used to be I could expect maybe 60% of my budget to have been spent in post-production. Now I'm actually down to 30%. Pretty good, huh? Okay. Data, and of course data. So when you're shooting, it's just creating reams and reams of data. Okay, what's the story? The what of the story doesn't change. You still need a great story, you still need the arc, you still need the characters, you still have the canons. All those things do not change. It's the how that changes. It's how you're going to tell the story. And the only way you're going to learn how is by watching a ton of VR and experimenting. And if you make a mistake, more power to you. And if you break a rule and it works, more power to you. Don't be afraid. If you can tell it in 2D, which I said before, then please, make your movie in 2D. We were in a workshop these last 2 days. Someone was telling their concept. I said, that's a movie. That's not a VR experience. That's a movie. You know, and it was a traditional filmmaker, and he basically couldn't get out of his head for traditional film. He couldn't see it. And my question to him was, how much VR have you seen? Well, I've seen a few things. No. Immerse yourself. Immerse yourself. Get into it and see it. Everybody loves a good story, and they'll love it in VR, and believe it or not, if your story is great, people won't notice how much time they're spending in the headset. I've heard many filmmakers who have made great films say people come out of the headset and they don't realize how much time they've been in it. What do you want the audience to feel? When you're in a dream, right, or even in reality, and I write with my eyes closed, right, because I'm trying to imagine what I'm hearing over here and what I'm seeing over here, so it is kind of like a dream. But I just don't want the audience to have a story. I'm telling something greater than that. And in some of the stories that I've watched people literally grab their hearts or fold their arms or raise their arms. You can actually watch, for filmmakers, when you're showing your stuff, People don't know you're looking at them anyway because they're inside these things, but you can watch how their body is responding, and that body language will tell you a lot. Some general considerations. Understand the medium. Watch as much as you can. Forget film school for a moment. Film is visual, VR is experiential, but you can bring that film school experience back. I saw some cuts in this piece, which is the hitchhiker piece, that I didn't think would work. But they were film cuts, and I didn't think they would work, and they worked. So, I realize everybody wants a manual to do VR, I wish I had one, but you're learning. I just read an email from our director yesterday on this project, and how he's pushing the camera, and how he's asking questions, and can he do this, and can he do that? You get to ask those questions. Okay, imagine, feel as you write, this is about sight and sound, point of view. In the beginning, everybody wanted you to be the main character, right? You're going to be in point of view. If that point of view serves your story and it does it well, great. But believe it or not, I can start out with an establishing shot. And then I can actually move into a character's point of view. Or I can take the other character's point of view. So that's what I mean about traditional filmmaking and point of view, Now, I did see, and in spatial representation we talked about, what's the space look like? Scale. There's nothing worse in bad VR than seeing someone whose head is twice as large as yours or 3 times smaller than yours. Has to be the same size. We work with independent filmmakers, and we take those independent filmmakers and we embed them in existing productions at production companies so capabilities can be learned quickly, and so the independent filmmakers can make some money so they can support their own filmmaking and have a gateway, right? So I went and I saw this movie on bullying, and I'm supposed to be the child that's bullied. It's all well and good. The script was fair. The concept was great, but the bully was so small. As he's yelling at me, I'm like, I didn't feel a thing. I felt completely separated from the experience. Same thing in documentary, right? So the one documentary, I'm going to show you a little bit of it. It's changed a little bit. One of our filmmakers is a brilliant documentarian, Sarah Hill. And by the way, the reason you don't get great documentary films in VR right now is because I don't feel they're being made by documentarians. So the best practices of documentary filmmaking, which is industry and inquiry, they're not there. But they will be, and we'll talk about that. So this is a story of rangers in the Congo who are giving their lives to save the animals and save the planet, right? It's so important to the filmmaker, and yet, when they're talking, and she's interviewing them, we're separated from them and we're looking down on them. And I said to her, you want to elevate their position. We're looking down on them. Think of the psychology of that, of looking down on them. That's not what you want to achieve. So scale and position of camera, very important. And sometimes it's difficult to achieve. The power is intimacy. That's what I mean about close-ups and getting in. So what we're asking right now in one of our productions, it turns out that the jaunt camera, once you get into 5-foot distance, it starts to distort. So we're trying to figure out how to get closer, because the intimacy of our 2 characters, of our 2 brothers, who are meeting on the battlefield, they haven't seen each other in 4 years, that intimacy and those reactions are so important to us. So we've asked the camera companies and whatnot, what can our solution be? And I guarantee you, because independent VR filmmakers are hackers, right? That's a hackathon. I guarantee you we'll probably end up with a couple of GoPros in 180 stereo. We're going to blur the background so that we can focus the attention on the brothers. But we're trying to work at that solution now. So we see how we want it. Now we have to make the technology serve. Sound, we talked about directing people's attention through light and stuff, very important, and duration. Whatever the story you're telling, you're going to take the time you need to tell it. By the way, you have to give people a moment to acclimate in VR. You just have to give it. But you can start it. You can, what we just did in one piece was, we did a fade in with the voiceover, so you heard the dialogue before you actually got into the scene, and then it just sort of faded into the scene. It was effective and it worked, and it let people know where they were, instead of boom, you're in there and you're disoriented. Any questions so far? Great. Okay, how? Take a picture if you want. Okay, so everyone who knows Michael Moore, right? Documentarian. So I've usurped some of his 13 rules of documentary filmmaking. He says, don't make a documentary, make a movie. I say, don't make a movie, make an experience. Everybody understand the difference? Great. By the way, the truly great movies that you see on the screen that grab your attention are immersive anyway. Anyone see Sicaria? Yeah, at the edge of your seat. You were in the movie. Okay, second, don't lecture. Yeah, don't lecture people in a documentary. If you're immersing them in a true, authentic experience, they'll get it. Make your films personal. Make your films personal. Got to be a subject you care about and are passionate about. Focus on the story, not on the technology. Point your camera at the cameras. What he was saying is there's stuff that the mainstream media doesn't cover in documentary, so point your cameras at them and provide that as your context. I say you are the camera. You know, you are basically shining the light where people are going to look. Are you responding to what you're filming? Are you shooting your experience? So when he says, are you responding to what you're filming, he's saying, while you're standing behind the camera, do you feel it? Are you excited about it? Are you laughing at what's taking place? Are you invested in it? Are you shooting your experience, which is when you're shooting in VR, even though you can't be, well, sometimes you can be under the rig because it's all around you, but are you feeling what you're shooting? Less is more in VR. Slower, sometimes better, simpler, much better. Yesterday when we were talking, somebody said, I have this going on over here, and this going on over here, and this going on over here, and already I was sick, and they were just describing it. I wasn't even in VR. Okay, sound is more important than a picture. In documentary, sound is just as important as picture. Okay, and these are some of my rules, right? Eyes are the windows to the soul. Eyes are very important. Your characters have eyes. It says a lot. By the way, your actors have to be superb in VR. Just they have to be really, really good. Acting for VR is different. I'm not an actor. I can tell you some things, and I can direct an actor, but I don't know how to act for VR. Okay. Direct attention if narrating. If you're in a documentary and you're saying, the desert was dry, the water was this, to your right, you can see blah, 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 blah. That's not so hard, directing attention. You have that opportunity for intimacy. You may have to block your scene, literally. Even in a documentary, you might have to move people around so that you get the effect that you want to get. I know that might be cheating a little bit, but you're framing shots anyway in a documentary. Now you're actually framing people. Be creative with existing 2D footage. You may already have stuff, and you can frame that. We're going to see a little bit in Welcome to Aleppo when I show you the example. You can put pictures around. People can, there's a million different experiences, and you'll start to see that in museums that have existing assets. You'll walk into a room, and the pictures will be all around you, or you put on a headset, and the pictures will be all around you. It's already being done. Use graphics if they're vital to the story. Don't overuse graphics. Especially, right now you have to bake the graphics in. And also what's happening is people are putting graphics here and here and here. So, you know, where are you looking for your credits, actually? But with Liquid Cinema, no matter where you direct your attention, the credits will be there. So that's solving that problem. Scale and perspective, I just talked about that. Get it right, or you'll have no impact. Get an HMD. If you're truly serious about virtual reality, first of all, you should go to Boost, because they have the facilities. They have the content. You can get as much as you want there in terms of watching. So you can go there and watch, like going to the library to watch. You can go and watch experimental stuff. But if you can't do that, invest in a gear, VR, or invest in an Oculus. Or the cost of entry is not low for the higher end headsets. But to get yourself a Samsung phone and get yourself a Gear VR and spend half hour of your day looking at the new stuff that's coming out, the good stuff and the bad, that will help you a lot. Quality of production, roles and positions, and bad graphics here. It's killing. Okay, so in traditional VR production, you could have this whole crew. There's a writer, part director, part DP, part cinematographer, director of photography, casting director, production designer, sound designer, SFX supervisor, which you may want to have on the set with you, production manager. I've got a production manager on this project for PBS that's the best production manager I've ever had. And she'd never done VR before, and she picked it up so quickly. She totally understands the bridge between VR and film. There will be more people like that. Or you can be a lean machine. You can go out in the field with a writer, producer, camera operator, and an editor. We're doing a show for Showtime Networks, which is a premium network. It's called The Circus. It's inside the greatest political show on earth. It's a story of our elections, and it's a reality documentary. It's very intimate. But we can only credential 2 people from the Secret Service, so you can't have a crew, right? So they had to pick up. So the writer and the producer Producer and camera operator on scene. A little secret here. Because how many are editors? Yeah, so you're telling the story. We all know that, right? So I said, I need a virtual reality editor who came from documentary and film, because they have the sensibility to tell this story and also to match the style and the editing style of the actual television show. That person didn't exist. So what we did was, I said, let us find a really great documentary film editor. And the production company we're working with said, okay, yeah, and he can sit beside or behind the VR editor. I said, other way around. Put the documentary editor in front of the console, put the VR editor behind, let the documentary editor know what's possible and see what he comes up with. So there has to be this collaboration and this bridge building from old to new. Okay, I'm going to show you some videos.
At age 90.
Oops. So this is Honor Everywhere. Remember, these are in 360. They're also available in the headset. So the way I'm going to show it to you, this was to give veterans the experience of, every year we have something called Honor Flight in the US, where veterans visit the walls and their own memorials.
We are losing our World War II veterans at a rate of hundreds a day nationwide. And sadly, most veterans, like my grandfather, Staff Sergeant Russell Helwig, died before they ever got the chance to see their memorial. On this day, we traveled with veterans on a Central Missouri honor flight. This is Honor Everywhere.
So you can see what we were able to move around the environment.
Youngerman. I was in the Merchant Marine, and while we were going, of course, to Washington, D.C.
So you get the idea.
All the monuments from
and they're putting veterans inside of the headsets that can't go to the memorials themselves.
Vietnam and Korea and those wars. And I'm very excited about this because there's certain things that you just have not done in your life. And I've done a lot of things, but I have not covered this section of it. So this is very interesting to me to go there and see these monuments. I think this really makes it meaningful to go there as a group rather than by yourself. I think I'll probably make some friends.
This is shot in stereoscopic, but you're seeing it in 2D 360 right now.
I served
what I mean about
Korea.
the continuum.
I went in February of 1951. I was in the...
Okay, so this is one of the first documentaries called Welcome to Aleppo from Riot. You'll see mixed media here. It's a great story about how he snuck the rig in, buried the SD cards at the border because he knew he'd be arrested on the way out, then had the British authorities drive him back to the border and dug up the cards.
This is my city, Aleppo, Syria. A few years ago, these streets were filled with 2 million of my people.
So this is almost a year and a half old.
City before the war.
So you begin to say, well, how would I do this differently? You can see the way this is set up is so that wherever you look, you can see the same pictures inside the headset.
We used to live together.
But you're using old media.
Culture and history.
You're using traditional media inside the headset. Now,
but for the past few years,
if you're a documentarian, you can probably think of different ways that you would have portrayed this, how you would have moved through it, because you see the camera is just stationary here in this. It was a big rig, it was a big rig with many cameras.
We see a coming dawn. We wait for a liberate.
Okay, this is a really noble experiment.
6 years
Keep this
ago,
online.
my mind became confused. I did not know what was wrong with me. I was frightened. My family was afraid.
I think this is in traditional format, not 360.
They took me to a healer. But my mind still confused, grew very, very dark. I was put in a small room.
Okay, I want to describe this. You can see this. So now they're showing us the small room, and they show him sitting there, right? And he's narrating. Never in the whole documentary, whether he's talking to us directly or in that box, do we see his eyes. I cannot have the relationship with him that I could have if I could see his eyes, right? I can empathize only so much. They wanted me to feel what it was like to be in the box, and you can see they move around a bit.
Locked away.
So you're in the box, and it's
My
dark.
foot falls through a hole carved in a log.
Dark, dark, dark.
Unable to move.
But I have to tell you, even in that experience in the headset in the dark, the sound is not right. So if I'm sitting in this box in the dark, and now I not want me to experience it, what are the sounds that I'm hearing outside that are scary or confusing? If you're giving me that experience, then really give it to me. Am I making my points, by the way? Okay, great. Because if you're, I'm documentary filmmakers here. Yeah, this is such an amazing opportunity for documentary that when you nail it and get it right, it will blow people away. Because most storytellers, whether you're documentaries or not, documentaries, we want to move people with our stories. So now once you get them in there, you can. Okay, this is the trailer for Are You Listening? So this is the Congo story, right?
So please, mon commandement, entre yeah, marchez.
There are people in the world who are giving their lives to save the earth.
I lost 2 of.
Okay, see how far away we are from him? And even though we can see the environment that he's in, that's great. But we should be closer to him. We should be able to, he's telling us his life
My
story here.
colleagues in March. The other challenge we face in Virunga National Park
By the way, you can make
is
transitions now.
reliable
You see-
power. It will save Ranger's life because we need communication.
Sierra di Serapatu. Sierra, do you read me?
We should be investing in other sources to generate electricity. Sources that wouldn't destroy and flood our land, like the dams do.
This is my message. I want them to get to know our lives and understand how we live. See our houses, how we feed ourselves. They don't know how is the life of people in the forest because they've never been in the forest.
So I've actually seen the actual footage from the complete documentary, which they would not let me show you, but it gets better as it goes on. Okay, this is from PBS. There we go. By the way, there are all sorts of fun things, like if you look up Ritz Cracker 360 Facebook, you'll see a video where they tell a story over time in 4 different scenes. It's a family and it's in their living room. It's brilliant. Okay, so what's happening is the father's telling a story, and the same story is told year after year after year at American Thanksgiving, but they're changing the scenes. They're updating the scenes with the furniture.
What was the name?
That is Ritz Crackers. So you see, this film is 10 minutes. This is only done in 360. So in the headset, I'd be looking at the plane. So by the way, you have Facebook and YouTube 360, and anybody can upload videos to YouTube and Facebook at 360.
This plane is taking food to remote villages in South Sudan's lowland swamps. It's the rainy season, and roads are washed out.
I mean, I'm controlling your experience, but obviously you will control your own. But
The only way to get food here is to drop it from the sky.
So I realize I'm cutting your experience short, but what I suggest is you can find plenty of 360 documentaries and stories. Watch them and think, what would I do differently? What would I do differently? And I actually thought that you were asking what a cheap way to get into VR is, not just a headset. But you know, you have consumer cameras, which I'm going to show you right now, that allow you to get in fairly quickly. Okay, just some quick things. Story planning, don't let the tail wag the dog. Make sure your technology serves the story. Do your research. Find out what's possible, watch as much as you can. Don't be afraid to push the envelope. Define your criteria for what you would need in a camera, what you would need in sound. Maximize the medium. Think of what's possible. Think of what you want people to feel, how and where you want them to feel it in their bodies. You have a choice to make. 180, by the way, where just showing this much is as viable a storytelling medium as 360. It's easier to direct people's attention, but you get to decide whether you're going to do 2D monostatic or 3D stereoscopic, or 360 2D, which is just like the movie, or no definition, no 3D, or 360 3D stereoscopic. And if you're using computational photography, which a lot of people are using now in stereoscopic, you'll get a much better experience for your user. How do I write a story? This is storytelling. So I actually use blocking as if I'm a choreographer, And this is an opening scene, scene 2 from something that we're working on. Here's our main character, he's going to enter. And in the script, I've described the actions that are happening at table 2, table 3. I'm describing everything that's around. At table 3 right now, there's a waiter, and those guys are playing a dice game. By the way, our main character's a nervous wreck because he's afraid he's going to get shot. Turns out he's right. But so the dice game is distracting. The coffee going on over here is distracting. There are a million sounds that are heightening his experience. I don't have to worry so much about this anymore, but you remember when I told you about distance to the camera, and if you're too close, someone's face could look like a Picasso painting? So these are the stitch lines, and you have to be aware of where your actors are. You want to keep them between the stitch lines, not on the stitch line. And the closer they are to the camera, the more likely, if they're on a stitch line, the more likely the image will be distorted. This actually has turned into kind of like a flip book. So the director and I have discussed together, and he had the same vision. By the way, we scouted location. We're not going to be able to do what we want to do in location, so it has to be done in the studio. So window, that's where we'll be lighting from the outside. It's a desert, it's in the desert, it's in a border town that really does exist. So we'll be lighting it from above, and we'll be lighting it from outside. Does anybody have any questions on that? It's pretty self-explanatory, about moving the characters to the environment. Oops. Okay, so selecting your rig. How many cameras are you going to need? Less, I think, is more. So you can use less cameras with wider lenses. 280 L lenses are very popular right now, L-class lenses. Are shooting 180 versus 360. You have to sync all the cameras, by the way. You can't use 4 different cameras in a rig. You have to use the same camera, and it has to have the same settings. Sound, you can either use sound that's on board the camera. It doesn't work so well. On the consumer cameras, you can use it if you're experimenting. But some people prefer to mic the actors. I don't know that much about sound design, like a sound designer would. Some want to mic the actors. Some have a Tetra microphone that records sound all around, and then you can futz with it in editing in the algorithms. On-set monitoring, don't have so many of those right now, so you're kind of shooting blind. So for those who are used to looking in the monitor, we've hacked a solution, but that'll probably change in less than a year. Field of view, lenses overlap, so 180, 180, 280, 280. The more overlap I have, the easier the stitch will be. The framework we talked about. Motion, how is the camera going to move through the environment? Stitching, is the camera going to stitch on board? are you going to take the raw footage and stitch later? Which would be more expensive. But in a high quality production, worth it. By the way, my experience with the stitching programs is you still kind of have to babysit them. Test your cameras. Test your cameras, because you don't know the result you're going to get. So we just did a camera test for my brother's keeper for the Civil War thing, because we're blowing things up. There's cannons, there's horses, there's dirt particles, there's squibs, there's all this stuff. How is the camera going to handle that particulate matter? So we stood in the parking lot, we threw dirt at the camera, we jumped up and down, we beat each other up in front of the camera because of the stabbing and the bayonet stuff that will be happening, and then played the footage back, and then saw the problems that we would have to solve, and decided, as I said, we can't use that camera for the whole thing. We have to come up with a second camera for what we're doing. Hacking. I have seen our filmmakers take a hammer to a GoPro lens, tap, 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 break the lens and install a new one. I have seen our camera makers build an underwater rig from two plastic balls and a mason jar, the jars that you make preserves with, a mason jar rubber flange, and it worked. And integrating consumer cameras into what you're doing. So these are a bunch of the consumer cameras. The black Kodak Pixel Pro is better, by the way. So these are things that you can use to actually do previs and walk your audience through stuff. By the way, I use the Gear 360, and up until last week I was using the Theta, but it actually was stolen out of my suitcase somewhere between London and Copenhagen. So that was disappointing. The Aura 4, that is just coming onto the market. It's like $3,700. That is live 4K stitching. It's a great rehearsal camera. And that's what the inventor said, that he expected more people would use it, not for live streaming of events, but for filmmakers to rehearse. These are some of the professional cameras. That one, the Mobius, third one over, you put on your head. Anybody see the movie Suicide Squad? They've got a VR experience. They put their main character in that to shoot the VR experience. We'd have their point of view. I have never been so sick. Really, it made me completely nauseous. Even thinking of it now makes me nauseous. So this is the joint camera. This is the one that we're going to be using. And any of these you can go look up. I mean, just look up VR camera rigs and educate yourself. I like the one on the end of Canon EOS low light cameras. Very easily accessible. That's Mover, M-O-O-O-VR. What's going on in our industry and independent filmmakers? Who's working with what? Everybody's working with GoPros because they're versatile and you can make them work for you. Then the Kodak, then the Blackmagic, so you can see. This was an unofficial survey done. You can see only 158 responses, but done amongst the independent VR film community. What footage were you working with in post? GoPro, Kodak, Blackmagic, Red. You can see that there. Then these are some of the sound solutions. This right now is the standout for me, the Dysonics Rondo mic, because it's live spatial audio capture. Just like cameras, only catching sound. And editing, just like editing in picture, but editing in sound. So you're actually editing what's around you. I saw it demoed and I was like, how much is that? Okay. And ambisonic sound, I'm not going to go into the explanation of it, but look up ambisonic, it's different. Again, your budget will affect your choices. Field miking is putting mics on your actors or in the environment. And the Dysonic does motion capture audio, which is just what I told you. Binaural, by the way, is in the headphones, but you have 360, you're able to divide the sound so it is all around you. So 3D sound, just like 3D picture, 3D sound is all around you. The closest thing you've experienced is the Dolby Atmos in the theater. Now you're going to experience that in a headset. So that's 3D sound. So it's not just coming in stereo, it's coming from all around you. It's placing sound. Prep your cameras, know what you're doing, select your workflow. Once you're on set, make sure everybody's rehearsed. This is the programs that people have worked with in post-production. And since this is going to be available to you, we can skip to that fast. In post-production, you choose your workflow, which is how you're going to integrate with existing editing programs. You're going to choose a stitching program, you're going to edit sound and picture, and you're going to format for the output. And that's it. And this is what we do. So I know that was really fast, and I might have run a little late.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm staying, so I'll be here for the break. I'm also at Brian Seth Hurst at Twitter, and I'm Brian at Storytech. I think I have these things on here. A second, I'll go back.
Yeah.
If you have a question, you can email me. Just put Nordisk Panorama in the subject matter so I know where you're coming from, and I will absolutely do my best to answer you or direct you to a resource where you can find the answer. And I love the opportunities that VR presents us all as storytellers, and I'm so honored that you had me here to talk about what I love today.